First thing I learned coming to India was time schedules are a suggestion. So we are talking about the $50 billion MedTech market in India. Dr. Harsh Mahajan is the chair of this, and he is the founder of Mahajan Diagnostic chain. I would hand over to you.
Good evening. That a practicing radiologist is going to be talking to such stalwarts of the industry, I think that is another googly which Mr. Prasanna has kept for us. So let's start. So Shravan, how large is the Indian MedTech industry now? What would it take for us to reach? And can we learn from what the US or Germany or Japan did? And what is wrong with us that we are still where we are?
Thank you, Dr. Mahajan, and good evening to everybody. And DP, thank you so much for having me here. So, Dr. Mahajan, to address the future, I'd like to take a leaf out of the past, right? Where were we 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and so on? 100 years ago, the life expectancy at birth was probably in the 30s, low 30s. Today, we are clipping along at late 60s, 70 plus, and the child that's going to be 150 is already born. So what happened over the last 100 years? We've had a lot of technology innovations, we've had surgical innovations, we've had new drugs that have come up, but the most significant impact on longevity has been public health, right? So park that for a moment. Hark back, say 75 years after the Second World War, these three countries that you've mentioned, the US, Germany, Japan, what did they do? They invested in infrastructure, they invested in education, they have some of the best intellectual property, some of the best technical education in the world, and that's led them to where they are. Now look at the last 25 years, right? All of you have a smartphone, which is now your bank, your music system, and so many other things. It's miniaturized our work, it's removed friction from everything that we do. So just, if you would indulge me, take a look at these three things: technology, education, and public health. If we continue to invest in that in India, why 50 billion? It could be 100 billion. We've been seeing an exponential growth in the healthcare, medtech, pharmaceutical businesses over the last couple of decades. If we continue to do that and invest in the right things at the right time, I think we could be very well in for a 50 billion plus market in the next few years.
Thank you very much. I think one of the basics of innovation is R&D. And we have people sitting here who have been at the cutting edge trying to build R&D systems. Now, would you like to take that how can R&D and our work there, because ultimately IPR is huge money, would that help? And what needs to be changed or corrected?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, if you look at all the growth we're talking about, 50 billion targets, what we have, whatever we have seen so far has been incremental, right? We talk about manufacturing, we talk about insourcing, so on and so forth. If you want to make a leapfrog, there's no other choice apart from R&D and innovation, right? So if you look at some of the work we've done today in most of the medical companies, like creating, Alva spoke about ScanRay products, ventilator, we have CT examples here. These are all products which are actually going to solve some of the fundamental problems the industry is facing today. So I think these innovations going to definitely help us to leapfrog and get to 50 billion target if we have to get there. And
see, we have so many young entrepreneurs, startups, 2 people, 3 people companies trying to find new solutions, build new solutions. How will they be helped? We keep saying that we'll call them over, they will present, someone from the industry will mentor them. Does it really happen? And do we need to do something to fix that?
So over the last few years, Dr. Mahajan, there's been a lot of work happening towards the mentorships, and we have a zillion accelerators, incubators, and so on and so forth. Pretty much every company has one. What is missing today is the ecosystem into which all these folks can come in and together solve some problems, right? Today, they're all still in silos, still they're working.
So who's going to do that? Do you feel this is somewhere we need a public-private partnership here as well in a structured format The government is trying. I'm part of several, projects of the government where Make in India MRI, and hopefully we'll have one to give to the country by June of 23. There's in Thrissur, CMET has made a thermomammography bra which has thermal chips in it with which you can pick up early cancer. Of course, a large scale study still needs to be done, but the results initially are very, very promising. Cancer, and take it to the rural areas, take it to anywhere. And out of those 100 that you screen, and in 5 you pick up something, they can go through the next stage, a mammography or whatever else is needed. So what would you want from the government?
Yeah, I think there are two things. One is government by itself cannot do everything. So there has to be definitely a public.
That's something made very clear by the co-author of this book.
Yeah, so it has to be a public-private partnership, I would say. But what is more important is to create a consortium kind of stuff where we have large players coming together and looking at it holistically. See, today what happens is we have a lot of islands, right? Siemens does, Philips does, GE does, ScanRay does. Pretty much everybody is trying to do something of that sort. But we're not working together and trying to see how we can put our collective might towards the larger cause what we have.
That's great. Kala, you head the Innovation Center of Philips. So what are your thoughts on it?
Okay.
And would you work with GE?
Question. I think at some point in time, we have to look at the patient holistically, right? And honestly, I have to share my story, one of my story. My father, he's no more right now.
Very sorry about that.
Yeah. In 1990s, he was admitted, and then doctor said he's 95% he's not going to come back. And then I had to fly back from US. I was on an assignment. When I went to him, he was having cardiac problems, but his bladder he couldn't put up. The cardiologist came and then saw just the heart, right? But he was really suffering. Then that was the first time I challenged doctor and I said, I know you're a cardiologist, but my father is a person. It's an integrated body. So we have to see
Absolutely.
this holistically. So that is where I think we have to look at the way things are progressing. Okay, all of us talked about the healthcare and being much more predictive, because all of us are getting much more equipped with our data, etc. Somewhere things have to come together, and we have to see this problem at a end-to-end perspective, rather than looking at Philips will do something, GE will do something.
So do you think AI can play a role in this?
Of course, now I'll tie back all the things that you said, the startups. It's going to be an ecosystem play, partners play. So this is where we need to enable, the data. India, with all the things that we are progressing, with the $1 trillion economy that we are moving towards, I think we have a great opportunity to get the data and get it into federation and make the smaller companies to come together, enable them with this data lakes, etc., which is going to help us to move forward. It's no more 2 years, 3 years to bring the product. It is about agile way of getting things done. In fact, along with my PIC head, I've moved on to take up a business transformation role. I'm looking at software as a service for Philips. One last thing I have to say.
Yes, please.
Mr. Prasanna has been the father of many of the leaders who are sitting here. So I think he has brought us together with a purpose today. Right? So my sincere thanks to you.
Your work is cut out,
Right?
Mr. Prasanna. And Mr. Prasanna, before we wind up, you have to think of a name.
Absolutely. Finally, I'll tell you, today we might be associated with a company. I truly believe we work for people. Right?
Those are words, at the end of the day, I'm told by people that, and in fact, Mr. Narayan Murthy once was asked that, how long do you plan? How do you plan? What is your vision? And his answer was QSQT, and people said, what is QSQT? He said, quarter se, quarter tak. So in this kind of world, but let's hope it happens.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, unless we all come together, this is not going to happen.
Manohar, I'm actually the odd man out here.
No.
I'm not an expert in the medical device, I work in the field of regenerative medicine in
Wow.
the area of cell and gene therapy. And the medical device is penetrating into this new sector. I mean, the previous session we had on the oncology side.
Yes.
Even in the oncology, I mean, how we can take the blood cells and then how we can isolate the T cells, how we can engineer the T cells and give it back to the patient. So instead of cancer care, how we can move to cancer cure.
Absolutely.
So we have been working in this field, and I think Innovate locally to win globally applies across the various industry segments, not only the medical device. And we have been seeing in the regenerative medicine, what we have done here, we have come with, first time in India, first time globally, we have come with a medicine, a stem cell medicine for treating a peripheral vascular disease, critical limb ischemia, where the blood doesn't flow because of blockage.
So is it given intravenously or do you locally inject
It's an
it?
intramuscular injection around the leg to say that how we can save the leg, how we can avoid amputation.
One quick question. All these technologies, at least some of what has come in the West, the CAR T cell therapy, I mean, it costs millions of dollars. Do you think we would be able to do it at affordable rates? Of course.
The CAR T therapy in the West, in the US, always costs about $500,000, about 3-4 crores. And here we are trying to see how we can bring it down to 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs. But still, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs is still not affordable. So we're trying to see how we can cut down and bring the innovation and make it affordable. But still, affordability, as you say, costs a lot of money.
We can target screening in such a manner that we pick it up early. Prevention is not only better than cure, it is much, much, much cheaper than cure. And that is something which, we need to look at. And the 150,000 health and wellness clinics that this government is in the process of setting up, of course, it's still in its infancy, I think is a step in the right direction. And of course, we will need disease-based treatment, but if we can do some prevention, if we can do early diagnosis, I think we would at least have met some of the challenges. Now, coming to you, Sunil, you have been in the thick of things. You are an Indian manufacturer, BPL. You work more like a startup now since the last 5-6 years. You even bought Penlon, that British company which makes ventilators. And through the pandemic, it was you along with the gentleman we just heard who were building these. What has been your experience? And I do know that you've taken BPL from here to here, but how do we reach the sky? And what is it that's necessary?
Multiple questions you have asked in one question.
So, one answer we need.
Yeah. Yeah. So how I see India is huge opportunity. We are at a stage which is now, going to trigger the growth. That's how I look at it. In 85, imaging was only 10 crores. And that was only X-rays. There is nothing else. And I just checked from Sharma. He says now this year it is 10,000 crores. Now from 10 crore to 10,000 crore, it's 1,000 times we have grown. I see a great market here. Number of beds are one major criteria which you should see. That from 1.3 beds today per 1,000 population, if we benchmark China, they are about 3.5. We look at Japan, very high, 10 beds. So even if we go, let's take to next 3 beds also, the whole base is going to become double. And look at the IB mining opportunity. So I clearly see we have done about 23-22% CAGR. I see no doubt in my mind that we as a country can do very well. And coming to the subject which was 50 billion, I want to tell you that today we are 12 billion. If we just do 20% CAGR, by 2030, we'll, as a country, will be a 50 billion, and I have no doubt in that. If China today is 100 billion and we are 12, in this room, if you touch your heart, you definitely would not like to have that 100 billion hitting you in probably 10, 12 years from now. So huge opportunity. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And technology is helping you. We used to have a CT which was only doing probably 2 slices a second. Today you do in 1 second.
But Sunil, for a country,
yeah,
And for a government which still spends 0.97%, that's what the central government spent. I was part of the 15th Finance Commission report, and everything put together, we may be spending about 3.5–4%. Without money, nothing is going to happen.
So, as FM said that from 1.5, she's taking to 2.5 by 2026. If you have to believe that, and if you, I'm talking of size of GDP, and GDP itself is growing by 6 to 7%, which means we are doubling it. By 26, we are doubling the healthcare spent in India that is proposed by government. So I see no doubt about it. And pandemic has taught us, I mean, how unprepared we are, right, from skilling to every area.
What about private capital?
Private capital is so easy now. You have your own money, you have a bank, you have a P funds, you have a venture capitalist, you have so much of opportunity now. You can go to IPO. Look at how many hospitals have gone to there. So that situation was not there earlier. You have to have your, sufficient collateral to give, and then you get only that much of percentage. Today, I don't think money is the issue. It's a question of willingness. And I personally feel that next 20 years is going to be for India. We all know the anti-Chinese sentiments. Clearly, we all understand. India can become China plus one country where, we probably will be looked as one destination where many will come to us and ask us to be OEM. I mean, some time back, we had Alva sitting here. Alva is an OEM for many countries. He's sending a lot of material to Japan and other places. That is going to emerge.
So you sincerely believe that this will be possible?
I think it is understandable.
And we hear that if we collaborate, there's no way but to collaborate. And of course, from the grassroots to the top, there has to be a system, there has to be a chain, it has to be all inclusive to be able to, achieve this goal. At least we are talking about it. That's one thing positive about this government, that at least goals are set. At least you say a 5 trillion economy, and then you start working for it.
Last, I just want to say, there is an example in China. There was a company 30 years back as a $30 million. Today that company is a $5 billion. Half of our size, one company. So I have no doubt in my mind, India is going to replicate those paths. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarvadeep, now finally to you. You worked in Siemens, then Mr. Prasanna brought you over to GE. You were the head of service, then sales, and now you run a distribution network for products in this country. You don't look inside now, you look on the surface. These are all products for dermatology and beauty and all of that. Does that also count, aesthetics? Does that also count as MedTech? How large is that market and where do you see it going?
Okay, thanks Dr. Harsh for this question. Thank Mr. Prasanna for giving me this opportunity to share my little learning in the last few years. Having spent about 35 years in the hardcore internal imaging, that is X-ray, ultrasound, CT, MRIs, cyclotrons, I got into aesthetic dermatology. That sounds totally disconnected from what we have been talking so far. Because this modality of which I am talking is not clinical, it's aesthetic dermatology. They may not treat the underlying medical conditions, but they do everything else. You see, we were doing all right before pandemic. It was going, today American market is about global market is about $100 billion, and India is only $3 billion.
That's for aesthetics and beauty.
Aesthetic beauty.
And I believe males form a very large part of that market.
Nowadays it is, yes. It is, I think there is no, difference between the treatments for either both the genders. It's same. You see, during pandemic, what happened, it had a negative growth that time because social distancing, cut off income for most of the consumers, and then no surgeries happening, beauty clinics are closed, supply chain issues, the big problem. But what happened, work from home came in. So people were on Zoom calls all the time. And that's where they were getting recorded, and suddenly they became very conscious about their personal appearance. And
that's
it became so easy.
Insight.
You see, the doctors also started getting appointments for the patients on Zoom calls. And the patients, they are not called patients for these doctors, they are called customers. And these customers, they want to have discrete treatments. And this was an opportunity for them to get into this discrete appointments and then going specially for that. They could get the appointments. There's a lot of, suddenly the market for the fillers and toxins went up. For all those skin tightening, facelifting went up. All the manufacturers, they are coming out with a lot of awareness programs. They are getting a lot of innovative equipment. So less pain and instant results.
Thank you,
This market will grow to $10 billion, I think, by
fantastic.
2030.
So if I was to sum up, it looks, the scenario and the future looks very bright. We have 10 billion coming from the beauty segment of MedTech. We have Sunil saying that, India is going to rock. We are going to manufacture, and we are going to manufacture for the world. R&D, a lot of work being done. These people are willing to come together, provided Mr. Prasanna brings them together. And we have the most important, stem cell therapy. And if we were to bring all of these together, along with disease prevention, along with, tertiary care, quaternary care centers, along with the medical value travel, which today itself is at $10 billion, they require MedTech. So I think if we look at all of this together, it would appear that by 2030, that is another seven years, we should be there, if not earlier. But we will need you as a catalyst, Mr. Prasanna, and then bring everyone together into one environment to be able to do this. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
So I think lovely having all of you here. Thank you so much for having made your time today evening.